Hey guys, Level Cap here, and today I want to, or rather feel I need to discuss the Star Citizen production drama and try as best as I can to answer the question, is Star Citizen a scam? This topic has been discussed at length for pretty much every major production phase of the game since it was kickstarted back in 2012. Usually, the scam citizen claims become the most vocal during long periods between production goals. The most recent vocal uprising was spurred on by Star Citizen's $27,000 ship bundle. I remember when the world lost its mind because Blizzard was selling a $10 horse in World of Warcraft. My, how times have changed. It certainly doesn't exactly help that a large number of the ships in the Star Citizen bundles are still in development and not even currently flyable in-game. Not to mention the game itself isn't even in a near final state, so even if all the ships were flyable, there still wouldn't be all that much you could do with them. It's still pretty easy to see why people get all worked up about Cloud Imperium Games, aka CIG, and their fundraising tactics. As a backer myself, I'm a bit blown away by some of the more extreme numbers I hear, and I'm certainly not a small-time backer myself. And each dollar that I have put towards the production of Star Citizen came with the understanding that it's entirely possible the game may never release. Most people are always willing to risk a certain amount of money doing something. Whether it's a business venture or a lottery ticket, people are risking their money all the time, and it's not really my place to say what is or isn't a worthwhile risk for someone else. Yes, $27,000 is way too much for me to invest in a video game, especially without getting a share of the company in return, but it might not be for someone else or a group of people, and CIG knows that. The only reason that ship bundle exists is because someone actually wanted it. It's also more likely that groups or the in-game orgs with hundreds of members would pool their money for the bundle since it's probably better value than buying ships individually. I mean, it's still a stupid amount of money and people are right to be surprised and baffled by it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong or indicate that the company is scamming people or desperately low on resources. Let's talk about the scam theory of Star Citizen. The definition of a scam is fairly broad. Any deceptive act can be considered a scam. Here, the idea is that Cloud Imperium Games is deceiving their community so that they can make money from an idea that will never come to fruition. Perhaps Chris Roberts is taking a huge amount of money from the backers as CEO. Perhaps all the higher-ups at the company get giant bonuses. Perhaps they all know that the concept is unattainable, and so they are just dragging their fan base along while they pay everyone a fat salary to keep their mouths shut and make enough progress to generate more hype. Perhaps nobody is getting rich and all the money has been mismanaged to the point where they cannot finish the project and are pretending that everything is fine. All these are possibilities, and I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments between 2012 and now that I thought it was possible, maybe even likely, that Star Citizen may never actually happen. The amount of drama surrounding the game has been somewhat relentless and disappointing in that most of it can be construed as fairly inaccurate. I guess that's the price you pay for crowdfunding a project with a long development cycle and tons of money involved. You get impatient investors as well as media looking to make some drama for views. It's clear to me that some people would rather see this game fail for the satisfaction of knowing they were right rather than watch a company succeed in creating the most ambitious space sim ever. This isn't surprising, it's just human nature, but it has caused a lot of misinformation and unnecessary stress along the way. Now, I personally think that it's pretty easy to throw out the notion that Chris Roberts is using Star Citizen as a get-rich scheme. The man has really an incredible reputation and legacy as a game developer, starting all the way back in the early 80s. In the 90s, he created the well-known Wing Commander series, and by 1995, he was regarded as one of the top 75 most influential people in gaming. He has nearly 20 published games under his belt, along with lots of expansion content. Later, he even founded his own movie production company and produced several Hollywood films such as Lucky Number 11 and Lord of War, not to mention his live-action Wing Commander movie.
Welcome to Sol, Sexy Lieutenant.
Yep, That's a cheesy Chris Roberts cameo in his own feature film. I don't know how much Chris is worth, but if he wasn't a multimillionaire before launching Star Citizen, then quite frankly, he's been shafted in every major project that he's designed or produced, which I find highly unlikely. So the idea that he would then launch a Kickstarter with a $2 to $4 million fundraising goal and use it to steal money while ruining his reputation and probably face legal charges just sounds so absolutely ridiculous and out of character. Maybe the guy owes the mafia a ton of money and had to come up with some cash on the fly, so he kickstarted this project and yada yada yada. I can't really with the conspiracy theories, especially when there's absolutely no evidence to back them up. Logically, there's no reason to think that Star Citizen would begin as a way to make a quick buck. Now, funny enough, Star Citizen isn't the first project that Chris was involved with in which the fanbase started to get nervous that it would never come to the market. The game Freelancer was another space sim with similar ambitions to Star Citizen that Chris began working on back in 1997. It was announced in 1999 and was supposed to launch in 2000, but didn't actually ship until 2003. A lot of this was due in part to Microsoft buying Digital Anvil mid-production, and also Chris deciding to not only leave the company, but apparently take a break from game development. However, despite the delays, the game was still very well received and enjoyed by many. Now, Freelancer was an ambitious game and it did go through a very long dev cycle of 6 years. Pretty similar to where Star Citizen is right now. A big difference, however, is that unlike Freelancer, Star Citizen was announced before any real production work began with the Kickstarter campaign. Furthermore, the initial budget and concept of Star Citizen was expanded by almost 100-fold. Imagine beginning a project in 2012 with an expected budget of $2 to $4 million and ultimately raising close to $200 million by 2018. Not only was the initial game design expanded upon massively, but we also had to watch Cloud Imperium Games build a company big enough to deliver this new, insanely ambitious project. Furthermore, they also had to invent engine technology that could simulate hundreds of ships, procedurally generated planets, and countless other technologies that had never been accomplished in any game of this scale. All these things take a huge amount of time, and it's usually why companies don't announce games until this kind of tech is already established and they've proven that they can do the things they want to do. Now, CIG, in a way, also pioneered massive scale crowdfunding when it comes to game design, and if you followed the progress over the first years, you would have seen extensive feature creep. Basically, to raise funds, they were setting stretch goals that massively expanded the capabilities of the game far beyond what was initially promised. Many of the features were things that they wanted to do and planned to do if the game was successful, but now with the additional funding coming in, they realized it could be possible to launch a massive feature-complete game. They offered players more and more exotic ships as rewards for continuing to back the game. Star Citizen continued to expand the promised features all the way up until 2014. After this, they backed off the feature creep and focused on expanding their spaceship arsenal to continue the fundraising. During this period of time, many assets for the game were redesigned because of the feature creep. Spaceships that were once simplistic shells and hitboxes were redesigned with all the new fully simulated internal features that required a lot of original designs to be partially or even completely scrapped. Since part of CIG's marketing campaign was designed around being very open with the production process, fans were also quite aware of the scrap designs, and many felt like CIG were wasting their money by letting the feature creep slow production with the costly redesigns. The community had become a very divisive place, and the quantity of vitriol aimed at Star Citizen and many of the developers themselves turned into media gold. Many gaming websites and magazines jumped on the opportunity to blast the game, often calling it vaporware or scam citizen, while citing delays in production, lofty goals, and extreme backer fees. An indie game developer, Derek Smart, became one of the most infamous critics of the game and even called for an FTC investigation against CIG. In response, CIG refunded his initial $250 pledge for the game and canceled his account. Sort of a "we reserve the right to refuse service to any customers" type of thing. Predictably, this just further fueled the fire and also inspired other backers to seek refunds. Later, the Escapist magazine published an article about former CIG employees who characterized Chris and his wife Sandy Gardner, who is also heavily involved with the project, as incredibly unprofessional, using defamatory language in emails, calling people stupid, and also using discriminatory hiring practices. The sources were left anonymous, and they didn't wait for a response from Chris Roberts or Sandy before publishing the article. Chris and Sandy denied these allegations, but as you can imagine, this article exploded the internet for a while. The personal attacks were getting out of hand, and later the Escapist removed the article from their website. Whether there was any legitimacy to these claims was never fully determined. Other anonymous employees claimed at times that CIG was almost out of funds and that they only had $8 million left. Again, these claims were never substantiated, and CIG denied them in full. Almost 3 years later, the game is still in full production and has nearly double its crowd funds since these accusations were made, and has about 500 employees on the payroll. Nonetheless, the attempts to smear Star Citizen's reputation never stopped and occasionally escalated. In 2017, a tech website posted an article about someone who bought $45,000 in digital items for the game and was then unable to get a refund. It turned out that these events were completely fabricated, and CIG had to spend considerable time clearing their name. Recently, another backer took CIG to small claims court to try and get about $4,500 back from his substantial backing. However, because the company has a 14-day limit on refunds listed in their terms of service, he lost the case. Nonetheless, the legal documents were posted online and many news sites covered the event. Now, a big part of what fueled a lot of the criticism, especially started the criticism in the early years of production, was Chris Roberts' unfortunate habit of setting overly ambitious timeline goals for major development hurdles. As you can imagine, they missed a lot of these production goals in the time frame that was set, and that only provided more fuel for the media and fans to speculate about production woes. However, in 2018, Star Citizen is finally in a space where most of their production tools are complete, many of the game's features are functioning, and they are now hitting quarterly production goals. Impressive in-game demonstrations have been made of procedurally generated city planets, single-player demos showing Mark Hamill and other well-known actors, strutting their motion-captured stuff, and giving us concrete benchmarks of how far the development has come. The persistent universe now allows players to pilot massive-scale ships, carrying cargo, vehicles, perform seamless planetary landings on ludicrously huge planets, fight pirates and other players, and run basic missions. Yes, it's all still very, very buggy, but the progress has been substantial. The technology, detail, and fidelity does not, in my opinion, represent a company that is cutting corners and stealing money from their fans. But again, this is just my opinion. I've spent time working on games in the past, and I know a lot of developers and behind-the-scenes workings of game studios, so perhaps the time it's taking to make this game isn't as surprising to me. Many other games have taken 7 years or even more with their development time and have produced far less ambitious games for the end result. Still, it is very important for the community, media, and journalists to keep developers in check, especially when they are designing with crowdfunding. In fact, it's really our duty to do so. As a backer, I am responsible for holding their feet to the fire if they aren't delivering. That being said, over the years of following this game very closely, I am impressed and excited by the progress that has been made. The leading people designing and producing Star Citizen are all proven developers with many shipped games under their belts. Yes, the budget for this game is totally insane, and that doesn't always translate into development speed. Still, I'm impressed and excited by the progress Star Citizen has been making, especially now in 2018 with more frequent updates and the most challenging hurdles seemingly behind them. I have little reason to doubt that they will not finish making this game. Deadlines may be extremely important to some, but doing it right has always been more important to me. To conclude, I will say, despite the drama and accusations over the years, in my view, given the people, the history, and the progress that has been made, I have little reason to believe that there are any devious intentions at work. I truly believe Star Citizen has the potential to be an industry-defining game, but it takes time to create something of this magnitude. And if this game doesn't live up to its promises, you can bet that I'll be one of the first people there reviewing, giving critical feedback, and again, holding their feet to the fire. Thanks for watching as always. I'll be sure to keep giving Star Citizen updates along the way, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.